Hello, everyone. We're going to give you just a couple more minutes. We want more people to join from the waiting room. So we will get started in just a couple more minutes. I appreciate all of you who are nice and early today. Very well done for this Wednesday. Oh, they are starting to show up. Oh my gosh, we're getting emojis.
Love. Look at that.
This is one of the first little emoji thing I've seen. I don't know who's doing it, but I appreciate you. You're making this fun already.
It's so much better when there's participation.
Yeah.
It really is. Um, well, I say we go ahead and get started. Um, just so you guys know, there is a question box. I can't remember what it looks like when you're participating on the other side, but there is a question and answer area. Please feel free as we go through today to put any questions in that, and we as panelists will go ahead and answer those as they come in. So hoping you have a lot of questions for us, but welcome to our go-to-market webinar. I feel like this is a little bit of an untapped conversation in the industry. And I'm really excited that we had some interest in this conversation. So can't wait to dive in today. We want to help you all break the referral ceiling. I probably should have introduced myself. My name is Megan Wojtek. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at Vantaca, and I've got three wonderful panelists that have all tapped into this conversation in one way or another. So they're going to be really great resources for everybody. But let's go ahead and start with a quick introduction of each of them. Katie, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Todd and then we'll round it out with Melissa.
Sounds
Tell
great.
us about yourself now, Katie.
Thank you, Megan. My name is Katie Marks. I am the Director of Strategic Accounts and Industry Advisor here at Vantaca. I'm super excited about this conversation. I joined Vantaca with a long almost 20-year background in association management. That number scares me sometimes. I had to think about it. But I'm super excited for this conversation and for the panelists that we have for you guys. So pay attention. I think that there's a lot to learn.
There is Todd.
Yeah. Todd Mosley with Atmos Living Management Group. I'm the president partner of the company. We're about 2.5 years old. We are a newer startup servicing two states in 2.5 years, Florida and Texas, and roughly 50 contracts so far as a new company, managing about 12,500 doors, and currently going through our first acquisition, which is super exciting. So
Congratulations.
thanks.
Melissa, tell us about yourself.
Oh, wonderful. My name is Melissa Bagari, and I'm the Director of Business Development at EJF Real Estate Services. This year, we're celebrating our 30th year anniversary, so a little bit more established, still family run and operated. My background blends operations, marketing, partnership, and revenue growth. I do love relationship-driven GTM strategies that align the visibility with the customer experience for the long-term business growth. I think when we chat about those, deep, meaningful conversations, you're able to strategically scale organically pretty easily. So I'm excited to have this chat with everyone. The panelists have been great, so looking forward to kind of diving into it.
It has been great so far. We joined, just so everybody on the other side knows, we joined like quite early just to prep ourselves, get a little excited. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So I'm going to stop sharing this so you can get our full faces here. And let's dive into the conversation. So, what I really want to start with is the conversation around referrals. I think that most management companies starting out and even into a lot of tenure in the industry rely heavily on referrals in this industry. So when are referrals the ceiling and how do we get past that point? I think this is where the industry could really start to improve. So for our panelists, is there or was there a moment when that word of mouth and referrals stopped being enough for your companies? And what triggered that shift from being reactive to intentional growth? So not everybody at once. Who wants to start us off?
I'll jump in here. I'm a little bit different model than some of the management companies. We're primarily a new development, developer, home builder kind of focus and niche in the market. So different strategies when you're looking at it from that point of view. I have to say though, referrals for us, even as a young company, was not kind of the beginning point for us. There's always kind of that relational side of the business that you've built with vendors, with managers, with other management companies, with different people. But from a kind of marketing point of view, I didn't rely on referrals as the way that we got started. It was super relational to Melissa's point and how she views bringing relationship into the process. And I took the people that I knew that I was already in relationship with over the last 15 years in the industry and utilized that as a way to just get to know more people within the specific niche that I was going after. That doesn't necessarily translate over into homeowner controlled neighborhoods and how you market towards that, but it is its own very specific place. So ours became super relational. We do have referrals. We have people that the word of mouth business is always great, but a lot of our stuff is really built on getting out there and just meeting people where they're at. And there's a little bit of an advantage because you can find those places where developers and builders congregate together, which is kind of a challenge on the homeowner side sometimes. So that was really our focus starting out. And we've just had great growth in being able to build relationship one-on-one without having to get their business. It was more of a, hey, we're here, we're an option. We want you to know this is who we are.
Yeah.
Work together.
Yeah. Melissa, tell us about your experience.
So, in my experience, I think for a long time, referrals were the primary growth engine for EJF. And I've seen that over time. I've been doing scaling businesses for 20 years. And so that's usually how everybody gets started. They start a business, they have a great product, customer service need to fill for their market, and it works really well. I think at EJF, they started realizing relying too heavily on referrals alone creates a level of unpredictability. And that's very common, right? We all want to be able to control our pipeline consistency so that we can control the rate at which we scale. So that's what's pushed us to evolve into more intentional go-to-market strategy. That's the GTM strategy, just in case, I know some people
Yeah.
may want a little bit more of, what does that mean? And so that includes digital visibility, thought leadership, partnerships, sponsorships, kind of looking at our CRM infrastructure and going after proactive business development alongside those referrals. That's when you're able to control your pipeline and really create predictable scale and growth that you can handle. I always say if we can't control our pipeline, then you really can't control your growth. So that's where we want to rely on multiple sources, not just referrals.
I love that. Katie, tell us about your experience because you have seen this from a different lens as well. How did you handle referrals and potentially growing past that referral state?
Yeah, actually, so just some background. Our business, my mom started a business in Florida, and that is the business Megan is talking about, a management business. But I think that it was I needed a job after college, and I was like, Mom, like there's nobody here selling anything. And she's telling me about how like you don't need somebody selling it. It sells itself. And then I came and realized that it doesn't in fact sell itself, and there's no marketing assets. And if we wanted to grow to a certain size and I wanted a job, that those things needed to happen. So for me, it was just like getting my hands into it and seeing that nobody else had time to go out and really hit the pavement before that. And then, like I said, it was just kind of out of necessity. I think that we were ready to take our business to the next level, and you can't do that waiting on referrals, to Melissa's point.
Yeah, I really like that idea of having a referral ceiling. How do you know you've reached it? Because I am guessing there may be management companies on here that haven't thought past this point of, well, we just get referrals and it kind of works out. But at what point do you say, I feel like we might need more? And is there even an answer for that? Because it may just be different for every single management company. What did you guys see? How did you know you reached that ceiling?
I'm happy to start. I think you recognize that the referral ceiling, like when growth becomes reactive instead of predictable, that's a good indication that, you need to start looking elsewhere. The signal is realizing that the more consistent pipeline, the generation that you create, the broader visibility you'll get, and then the more control you'll have over that growth. So I think to your point, a lot of people may think that, oh, we haven't reached the ceiling, but if they sit down and look at how much they're able to predict their upcoming quarters and what their growth trajectory is like, they may have a pause. And the longer that pause is, the closer you are to that ceiling than you think.
Yeah.
I think overall
I,
too, Megan, what do you think about just like the fact that overall this industry, like the business model is changing? So, these
Yeah.
so different.
these management firms, right? We were these, I hate to use the term mom and pop, but these smaller kind of shops that were there to be a lifestyle business for the operator, right? And now there's all this new possibility in this industry. And so we have to start thinking more sophisticated. We cannot just rely on the lore of the past, right? So in order to build a bigger engine, you have to think about building out this part of your business too.
Yeah, I love that. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, and for me as a startup, just not that long ago, what's my referral? Like, I have history in other management companies, but as a new company, I have nothing to put out there to
Exactly.
say, hey, look at me. So it was really thinking outside of the box. But we were kind of joking about it a little while ago before we started. And if we think about ourselves as consumers, where do we shop? Where do we look for things? Where do we buy things? And the reality is technology has put everything in the palm of our hand rather than, these kind of old school marketing techniques. It's super digital now. And it's whether yeah, I was thinking about it earlier, I have a hat that I buy, a specific company hat that I buy. And I do that and I found it because it was in my face all the time. And then I realized, oh, this is cool. And it actually, I now see people out in public with the same thing and I connect with them where I would never have before. And all that just to kind of say, I think we have to rethink our overall process. If referral is what you're relying on, we're missing the kind of bigger picture on, and we have to start thinking about where do board members live? Where are they spending their time? Where are they spending their
Yeah.
lives? And do I need to invest more digitally? Do I need to go into a different kind of advertising rather than kind of the old systems of what we used to do? For me, it was more personal. It was more getting in front of people, but I was at an advantage where I had the ability to actually get in front of them rather than kind of promote myself as a company. It's tough though when you're starting. You don't have a referral to go to. So,
Yeah. Well, I love this. So let's kind of shift the conversation into why boards actually choose you as management company partners. Because I think if you are a management company and you understand why they're choosing you, it can actually lead to building a go-to-market strategy around those things. So it kind of wraps a bow around this conversation really well. So when a board chooses you, what are they choosing? Melissa talks a lot about boutique at scale. So if you could talk about that a little bit and why your boards are choosing you, I think that's a great starting point for this topic.
Sure. I think what we see is with our boards, they're choosing a management partner based off of trust, responsiveness, and confidence in execution, right? I think we've been talking a lot internally, and it's going to be an industry trend about really going back to the customer service that we would be known to provide as a management company. We're using so many tools to support our managers and our communities that at the end of the day, having that trust, responsiveness, and confidence in our execution is what the boards need to see from us. And that's that combination of operational depth and experience, along with the relationship that we've built with our vendors and our boards and our industry partners, creates that long-term partnership that boards are looking for so that we can focus on their customer service, making sure that they feel like we are in control of their communities, that we have their best interests, because we know that AI and technology, like Katie had mentioned, the industry is changing. And so we're using those so that we can focus back on at the end of the day, the boards want to work with a community and a brand that they feel they can trust, is responsive, and they're confident we can, execute.
Yeah.
I do notice this like interesting trend in the market, and I was victim is the wrong word, but I fell into this as well, right? Where we're trying to describe that we're offering this like, white glove boutique service, but then you get to this point, like the at scale. I love how you add that, but how do you really deliver that?
So I think it's by really focusing. One thing we talk about internally when we talk about this boutique at scale is they want sophistication, resources, and operational infrastructure. That's how we connected with, Vantaca, and we really enjoy the adding those components and those features. So when you're talking about at scale, it's still focusing on what internally we built our foundation on with being a boutique company. And at scale means that we've added in layers to bring us to the 21st century of 2026, using AI, using software, using those infrastructures that larger firms have, but still having that relational component.
The word boutique makes all that tech so much less scary.
Yes, 100%.
Very true. Can you over boutique though? What if all of your competitors are also using we're boutique?
I think once you get past a certain scale, I mean, it's hard to be able to say, "Oh, I'm boutique and I have 10 million, properties,"
I have
right?
10 million doors under management.
Like
You're
so
like,
so
no,
that
no.
balance is where we had the focused growth. I think we can still use that boutique nomenclature, and that's unique to us, and we really do enjoy that balance of focused growth. But communities don't want to feel like they're another account number. Just the other week I was
True.
talking about some verbiage, and I said this is going out to someone in this demographic where it's like I need to write this based off of someone's Mima reading it, right? Like really still that boutique feel of we're looking at every correspondence we're putting out there and we're making it tailored to the person that would be reading it. And I think that's where your go-to-market strategy needs to focus on is who are you writing this to? Who's reading it and why?
Right.
Well, and
Now, again, Todd, you're a little bit different
yeah,
because you're not necessarily going after a single association. You're wanting to place yourself around developers. So,
right.
why do you think developers choose you?
But so I think a lot of it is the same actually. At the end of the day, it does look a little different in certain areas, but at the end of the day, it is, what are we ultimately selling as management companies? It's customer service. We're providing, these manual jobs, things that we're doing, but ultimately at the end of the day, we're providing a customer service based operation. And I think there's a very loud desire for that from what I'm hearing in the market from not just the builder developer, but also the homeowner. And I think the challenge on the builder developer side is having people that understand that part of the process of a community developing. What does it mean whenever, you're taking something from raw land to that first vertical home in sales, and what's happened in between there? What has taken place to get there? But really, from a client perspective, they're looking for the same things. They want somebody that they can rely on, that's an industry expert, and kind of in two markets, not just in the association side, but also in their world, in the builder side. They want to know that somebody knows what they know but also knows their purpose. And as Melissa was talking, I was thinking about that as any management company. I think you really have to narrow in on what is my purpose in business and what's our vision, what's our focus, who are we going after, and how. In the boutique market, you're not going to take on every person that reaches out because not everybody is, although they say they want the service, is going to pay for the service. And that's a very real side of the business where I think older models would say, well, we just have to take everything. I've worked in that space before where if it's an open contract, take it, we'll do it, we'll just figure it out as we go. And I think in your go-to-market strategy, you have to be willing to say no to the ones that aren't going to serve the purpose of the community, of the management company, and what that vision is. So,
You know what I will say? I think for smaller management companies, it's actually sometimes important to say yes to the things that you may not be able to do initially. Like if you just think of like growing the company, right? Early
yeah,
on, it is probably you're probably going, well, I need business
yeah,
regardless of
yeah.
anything. So I'm going to say yes right now and we will figure it out down the
Don't you
road.
also
And
think
then
that like everybody, all of these, every manager wants to be a saver. Like we all want to rescue people,
A
and
little
like
bit,
so you kind of want to
a little
help them.
that could be your go-to-market strategy too. You
bit.
are the savior
The Olivia
of
Pope.
some of those associations. Yes, so true. Um, this is really good. Let's talk about just so we stay on time. I have so many questions for you guys. But can we talk about some of the things that you've actually tried and maybe what worked and what didn't when you were first starting to grow? I can't remember which one of you said CRM. I think it was Melissa.
Yeah.
And this makes me laugh. Marina, our chief marketing officer, and I did a conversation similar to this at one of our coast to coast events. And it was like, raise your hand if you use a CRM. Nobody raised their hands. And it's like, well, how are you keeping track of any of the associations that may be looking for business down the line? I understand board members may change, but it at least gives you insight into how long ago someone was looking at new management, maybe when you can start doing new touch points. The CRM is actually kind of important. Todd, did you start with a CRM? Or I didn't think so. Most people don't. Do you have one yet?
Yep. I don't actually. We're probably a little behind in some of that. But honestly, it's probably because at the rate we've grown, it's not that it's not important. It's just something that we have other pieces that we've been working on implementing rather than, okay, well, now we need to do this. I know we're going to get to that point where we do have to do that.
Well, I
Yeah,
think Todd, you've also been a little bit more like strategic about your
Yeah.
growth, right?
right.
Like
Yeah.
you've kind of planned that out first. So that
It,
makes
it,
sense
it
that
is. I mean, the reality is I've said no to, possible contracts and communities reaching out because of where I knew all the irons were in the fire. And at some point I have to be willing to say no if I know it's going to be a detriment to my current client base.
well,
And
especially if
and I've had
everybody
to do
operating
that.
on referrals. If you were still on referrals, that would be extra necessary.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Melissa, do you guys use a CRM?
We do. And I personally, having, my background in scaling, I love CRMs. I think they are a big piece, but I often know that when, you're first starting out a business or you've got steady growth, they're not something people rely on. That's the first mistake that I see. The
Yeah.
second lesson that I see often is realizing that the CRM alone won't solve your pipeline problems. You need a good, system into how to track it. So I think when I've dove into the CRM that EJF had already implemented, what I did do was kind of update how things are being entered, tracked, qualified, and mostly so that we can eventually get to forecasting, but also evaluate year over year progress. That's where a CRM would be really helpful if you're considering a go-to-market strategy. You want to be able to follow up with every contact that comes in and also why. And so a CRM does a great job in allowing you to simplify the process. what was the deal stage, what was their qualification,
Right.
what is the standardized routing that you'll be doing, tighter alignment between marketing and business development. I think the old school model of having sales is, not what we're talking about when we're talking about go to market anymore. Like Katie said, the industry has shifted, and not just for our industry, but for business as a whole. So CRM should be not just a reporting tool, but an interactive interface that you're using so that you can track what you're asking, what's working, what's not working, and how do we pivot? How do we take that data and turn it into a strategy that we can use?
Right. If I could make a recommendation to people, I think a very easy entry point for a CRM is actually HubSpot. It's relatively inexpensive. It has great marketing and sales tools in it. So if you ever get into a point where you want to do outbound type work, it's got that marketing side to it that will allow you to do some outbounding. I just highly recommend it. I think it's a great, less expensive opportunity for starting in a CRM.
We
Super user friendly. Sorry, Katie.
oh no, sorry, I interrupted you, so I should be saying sorry. So sorry. But we implemented HubSpot at May, and I think my amazing sales director, Arian, is in the audience somewhere out there. But I will say that I think that that was like game changer because like now also the next person that comes in there, even though she's going to retire there and never leave,
You've got
uh,
data.
you've got so much data. The
Yeah.
history's there. I mean, and I think about when I came in and I was doing it on an Excel spreadsheet of like, you know, maybe here's some notes, and then you don't end up going back to any of those really. It's just the follow up there is important. And the tools, the marketing tools that you mentioned, the automation is incredible and so affordable.
Yes, very, very affordable. So honestly, like one thing to take away, I feel like that is it's so small, right? For go-to-market strategy. If you're not communicating with people after they've potentially closed lost, um, uh, you don't really have a strategy. You're not really going out to market to do anything. You're still relying on those referrals to come in. So that is one thing I feel really passionate about. Is there anything else that you guys have tried as far as go-to-market strategy, um, that has or has not worked? I have some thoughts and questions, but anything
I think I would
unique?
just like say like on that like go to market strategy doesn't isn't so many different things, right? It's not just like you
Yes.
going to the market. So I do think that there's other tools that support you in other elements of your go to market strategy, right? Like your like industry organizations and things like that, your advertising, branding. I think those are all part of the strategy to kind of
Yeah.
lump together. But I
Yep,
also
agreed.
think like you don't need to have a dedicated BD person to have a go-to-market strategy. You know, you don't have to have a built-out
No.
sales team to have a strategy. And in fact, you should have one far before that.
Yeah, agreed.
I think one thing that worked really well for us has been leaning into like those relationship driven visibility as opposed to transactional marketing, right? Industry events, partnerships, thought leadership, reaching out and collaborating with other companies, and people that are in alignment with what you're seeing your future growth trajectory as, and speed and responsiveness after that. So those are three things I think that's worked really well for us. I think on the flip side, that maybe hasn't worked well for us, and I think is something for everyone to consider as they are looking at maybe a go-to-market strategy is, taking on too many initiatives at one time is always going to put a little bit of pressure on your operations. And one of my favorite things for go-to-market strategies and talking about scaling is you can't outmarket or outdevelop bad operations. And so you really don't want to take on too many things. Like if you're going to focus on a CRM, that should be, a dedicated
Love that.
initiative for sure, because you don't want to put too much pressure on your operations.
Love that. We actually have a question that I think is good for this conversation right now. So I'm not going to wait until the end because this is good. What do you suggest to build brand recognition and that relationship angle in a market? Oh, someone hit answer. Sorry, I'm a slow reader. Okay, what do you suggest to build brand recognition and that relationship angle in a market that doesn't have many active board members at industry events. That is probably so difficult. Like, where do you find the board members to actually market to? Does anybody have an answer for this one?
Firstly, I would just say I don't think that board members are the ones going to industry events for the most part. Just period. That is not who goes. The industry events are for the vendor relationships and those networks. There's other management companies. And occasionally there's like all the Karens walking through in a group. So you get like your one super aggressive board. But I do think that that is important to know that it's hard for all of us to meet board members where they're at because they don't
Yes.
come out. They're like walking around with their clipboard or whatever they're doing, sending us emails. So I think something that I had a lot of success with in my business was we would host events, right? Like you want to make the board members feel special. And I think that that was super successful. So we would host like one, kind of premier event every year, invite all of our existing board members and our prospect clients and, do a little dog and pony show. But I think that just like getting them into the room together so they can see your team and what you're doing and kind of what you're about is important. Like have your own little mini vision.
Yeah, I love that. Melissa, thoughts on that?
Thoughts? I would love to do something like that. In fact, I did bring that up to the executive team. I think it would be great to put on almost our own version of vision in the long term. What we're doing right now is building a brand through LinkedIn, and I do think to Todd's point earlier is you got to meet the people where they're at. I really am starting to focus internally on where are these humans at, right? Are they on their we talked about it before we hopped on this call. I'm victim to the Instagram ads. Are they on Facebook trying to find an activity for their families? Are they involved in the city chamber of commerce? Because we know that those clipboard warriors love getting involved, and so we're looking at building that relationship visibility across the customer journey from start to finish. And that's not just their customer journey with us, but with where they're at in their lives. These boards are volunteer boards. So we've invested in programs and efforts into how we can bring that visibility online, which most of that is digital, right? We're meeting people where they're at online. So I think that's a great place to start if you're trying to get more visibility and brand recognition is start building your brand online and figure out what it is that you stand for from a marketing lens and start telling your story, even if it's just on LinkedIn to begin, and then try to figure out where your customers are living their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, I love
That's why
that.
it's so important to know your demographics too, right?
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
every retired person is on LinkedIn looking for jobs.
Right.
100%. Ideal client profile for your region is key.
Yes.
Yeah, we could have a whole webinar just on client profiles.
Yes.
Todd, you're still, I don't consider you a startup still, but you're like closer to that startup.
Yeah.
You're like a teenager,
I'll
a
take that.
teenager management
I'll take
company.
that.
But I feel like you are probably really close to figuring out the brand recognition piece because you almost have to do that
Yeah.
initially. So how have you done that?
Yeah, from the beginning, we before we even went operational, we took 3 months and just kind of built on the back end and really said, okay, who are we? What are we about? How do we put that in front of people? And social media was the quickest, easiest way to do that. Because of, being in the industry for 15 years, I had a lot of connections, a lot of people that I could kind of start pushing things to. Our vendor relationships are huge. And yes, it's word of mouth. Yes, it's kind of referral, but it's just getting your name out there. And we took the time to say, okay, this is who we are. This is what we want people to see. And I've actually had to change some of that as an example, when I came out of Florida market and going into the Texas market, I had to kind of change a little bit of my branding because it was too Florida feeling for my Texas clients. And so it really made me think even deeper about, okay, what is the stranger that doesn't know me? What do they see when they see my branding? And am I turning them off without even talking to them? And I think that's key, is really kind of like Melissa was saying, telling the story of who you are digitally that's become the new first impression. It's not the face-to-face first impression, it's the digital first impression. What I think, at least most people are going to even if they hear about you, they're going to get on their computer or their phone and they're going to go look you up first before they agree to a sit down and a lunch or a meeting or anything else. They want to know, is the time that I'm about to spend with this person worth my time as a possible client for them? And if you can answer that first, I think that's what helps get you in the door. But that first impression is a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Another really good question that is directly correlated to what we're talking about right now. And again, I don't know that anybody has figured this part out. How do you market in social media when people just tend to bash HOAs online? It is so difficult. Something that I thought of when I read that question, the the HOAI guy,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, Mr. Fitch. So what's interesting about that, part of me, like my gut tells me, I have never done this myself, so I'm not saying that this works or whatever. But part of me is wondering if anyone has tried to like lean into the goofy side of HOA management as a management company. And maybe you lean into it and you show you as the management company solving those problems. Like, wouldn't that be a fun way to market in like a scrollable reel because that's where people are living. We all just scroll up on every single thing on social media, but that's where my brain went. I'm not saying that that is good, but it would be kind of funny if someone like leaned into like, yeah, nobody likes HOAs.
I think the other thing too is that like for people getting started, look at your competitors' go-to-market strategy and
Yeah,
assets
see
and
what they're
material.
doing.
And then
Totally agree
sometimes
with
it
you.
can be hard to get your hands on them, but you'll find a friendly board member who will give them to you, or you'll just find them, right? And those are super helpful. Those were really helpful for me when we were kind of going through rebranding. Um, but you don't have to like recreate the wheel.
Yeah. Todd, Melissa, do you have an answer to that question at this point in time?
No, not exactly. To Katie's point, you don't have to recreate the wheel. I don't think, at the end of the day, I don't think any of us are recreating the wheel. We're all in some way providing similar to same basic products. I think being ahead of the curve is pulling in on a lot of the technology side. And as far as social media, I personally, I'm the most social, antisocial person there is. I there's a side of me that hates social media, but it's necessary. Like if you're not utilizing it's the same like in podcasting. If you're only recording sound and you're not doing video like you do with yours, it's you're kind of behind. So you've got to look at what works and what doesn't. I think that more of the kind of Instagram, Facebooks, that side of social media, even though you're going to possibly hit more people that are possible board members
Mhm.
or homeowners that can get you to board members, there's a very volatile side of that. And you have to kind of protect your image at the same time.
Yeah.
And so we're mostly LinkedIn. Like that's the majority of our kind of the professional side of social media, so to speak. It doesn't put you in front of as many homeowners, but it does at the same time to a certain degree. So,
Yeah, because
is it the only
most
option? No, but
yeah, most professionals are potentially, I mean,
homeowners,
they live
yeah,
somewhere, they go home somewhere.
right.
So, Melissa, have you
We
figured out social media?
So I love leaning into humor. I have not gotten the complete green light to start making reels that would play into that. I do love them. Marina and I had some nice chat, about leaning into the humor of it, right? These are humans at
It's
the end of the
funny.
day. It is funny. But we do focus a lot on LinkedIn, and even that I've been, piloting a little bit of humor, humanizing us, myself as the director of business development on LinkedIn, and so. But at the end of the day, I think you just don't can't be emotionally driven, right? When if you are participating in Facebook and Instagram as a, I'm assuming whoever submitted this question, they're asking because they're having a problem, right? So when
Mhm.
people are bashing on HOAs online, what I would say is just focus on problem solving and don't get into the weeds with the emotional negativity online. Just be problem solving as opposed to what a lot of people that are keyboard warriors are. They're problem presenting. And so sure, like, but every, issue has another side to it. So have we solved that problem? No. But my go-to is always leaning in on humanizing and being humorous. I think those are two angles if you are on those platforms, and I'm assuming that's why you asked the question, just don't get into the weeds emotionally for the negativity. I don't pay any attention to that. And I don't think anybody's go-to-market strategy should be that. But you do have to toe the line carefully, like Todd said.
One of my favorite things to do, actually, if I see things like that, I am a big believer in educating people on what our industry actually is because I think it's highly misunderstood. And I know that every single person would agree with that. So if you lead with education in a very specific way, I actually think people are very receptive to that, which is good. Now, I just realized we only have about 5 minutes left. I knew we would do this. There is one question that I feel like this actually sits with everybody. All of this sounds great, but we don't have time to do any of this, Megan. So what do you do? Like, how do you handle this capacity piece? Like, if you don't have time to do this, um, has technology actually opened up the ability for you to focus more on this? And will it go this direction?
I think so. To answer the beginning of that, it's really a value question internally on what are you valuing when you say you don't have time. And the reality is, if you see the need, but you're not willing to invest something into it, then you're going to get the same result. And the question is it valuable enough for you to figure out a way to invest into something or not? And that's with anything. But I think the investment side of looking at not right now, I don't have time, but tomorrow, am I going to have less time? Or a year from now, do I want to be in this same conversation, in this same problem? And, the reality is we make time for what's most important to us. And if we see enough value in it, then we have to make time for it. And that's just an individual choice of wherever you're at, whatever your need is. Um,
My guess is that
that's a constant process though. Like,
yeah.
where do I invest? What do I do? What's the first step? And I would say if you're asking that question, like, what is my first step? If you can't answer that, I think you pick something, have a real discussion about it internally and make a move and try. I think
Yeah.
that's
Kind of answering the question in an opposite way. Like, I know we talk a lot about um we talk a lot about the fact that AI is going to allow people to do more meaningful work. And a lot of people don't really know what meaningful work is at this
yeah.
point because we haven't had the freedom and the extra time to do extra things. So in my opinion, this should be one of the first things that you start doing at a management company if you're finding that, oh my gosh, my number one manager is starting to have more free time all of a sudden. Like, let's empower that manager to do, I don't know, this extra thing over on the side and like let that manager play with go-to-market strategy or business development or marketing or whatever the thing may be. I think that is kind of a beautiful approach to this. But any
I
thoughts
think,
from Melissa or Katie?
oh, sorry.
No, you're okay.
No, I mean, I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. I mean, I think when, and not to talk about product, but when we kind
Right.
of introduced HOAI, what I realized was not necessarily that everybody was so much freer all of a sudden. What I realized was how much administration was just not getting done, right? Like there's just so many more important and urgent things happening that there's so much stuff that would fall through the cracks. So I think just because of that, like evolution, but also I think what you just said illustrates like a bigger paradigm shift in the industry in that we're all, and by we, I mean all managers are turning more into these relationship managers
Yes.
versus these like task rabbits.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so true. And
That's
hopefully,
what I was going to say. Same thing.
yeah.
We're going through that process now. So
Yeah, and I
What
think
did,
combine the two other panelists and what they're saying, what Todd and Kate are saying. I think technology and AI are going to play a huge role in freeing up capacity. And then you sit down and you kind of go through the steps. I love personalized standardization. So how can you operationalize what you're doing into a system since you have so much more free time? Are we going to knock out a BD strategy? Are you going to knock out a marketing strategy? Are you going to look to see what your expansion strategy is going to be? And you pick one, and from that you use technology and the ever growing, AI tools that you have at your fingertips, so you can focus on what's going to be the most important with that extra time. And I think marketing and BD are a huge area that you could get a lot of bang for your buck if you invest a little bit of time in playing with different CRMs as well as AI tools available. You can make a lot of progress, but it's really about sitting and reflecting that's going to take up that capacity issue, because it is relationships that you're going to be able to focus more on with the admin stuff off your plate.
yeah,
Well, and I think like
yeah,
Megan, Ben always says this is going to give everybody like there's going to be two roads, right? You're going to white glove or you're going to 3X. And it's like you just are going to have to pick which direction you're going to go and how the AI is going to support whichever direction you pick. So are you going
yeah,
to offer your clients the service that you've always said you were offering, or are you going to go service a lot more clients?
And actually
yeah,
offer
yeah, yeah, seriously.
it.
Okay, we have a couple of we can do a quick Q&A because we actually do have a couple of questions that I think would be perfect to kind of wrap this up. So the first one is, how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors? Um, and what do you think is the most different into what is coming in the future? I don't know that I understand the second part of that. The How do
Like, how
you
do we
differentiate
differentiate
yourself?
our AI usage between
Yeah,
competitors, maybe? Is
maybe. That's actually a good question. Like,
right. Like, why is my AI better than Todd's?
We have the same one.
Mine's better trained.
Mine
See,
is coming.
but I do think that that actually is a great question. Like, why is AI? Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad,
Yeah.
but it definitely
Yeah.
depends on who's implementing it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can have all the tools, but if nobody is using them, they matter not.
Well, for our AI process right now is the investment side. We're just a few months into, you have to teach it what you're trying to tell it to do and how it works for you as an individual company. And that takes time. And that's part of that investment piece that I was talking about. And we're in the middle of that, but we're already at a point where we can start tracking where things have improved, how much they've improved, how much time has been freed up. And that's a big deal when you can start looking at that from a big picture of how am I growing? Where are my next staffing needs? Maybe I don't need the staff over here that I thought I did. I can actually invest more into people over on this side or invest into this product more because I freed it up. So,
Yeah.
I think though that not to make this an AI conversation, but the word that you use to me that is so important right there is investment. Like
yeah.
you've got to be willing to invest in your company. And that also is true with go-to-market strategy, I think. Like you can't just speak
100%.
it into
Yeah.
existence.
Which is, I think it's why people don't do it initially, is because it's easy to say that's the one thing. We'll figure it out. People keep reaching out to us. We keep getting those inbound forms. We keep hearing about associations that need a new management company. Like,
We'll
you're
let
taking,
them figure it out. Yeah.
yeah, you're kind of taking advantage of the situation at the moment. But like what Melissa said earlier, it's totally not scalable. You don't know when inbound is going to happen. There's no clock on it. And if you're not using your CRM, you can't even look at your trends to
I
Yeah.
mean,
see.
Melissa used this phrase predictable growth, which I think is so good for all of us. And I
Perfect.
think
Yeah.
for everybody else, it's been like reduce your churn, right? Like that is what we focus on as operators in the industry so much. Like just don't lose anybody. And that is not a predictable way to grow either.
No, no, that's a stressful way to grow. Go
Well,
ahead, Melissa.
and I think that's how we've differentiated ourselves, right? We've combined the operational scale with that like white glove approach with using the tools like the CRMs and the AI and the softwares, so that we're heavily invested in building the infrastructure for those systems. And so if you are new and you're trying to find a strategy, pick one and make progress on that. And by the end of a year, you've got four big initiatives that in the following year, you'll be able to control the pipeline, create the predictability, and then actually manage your growth. And you still have to prioritize the responsiveness and accessibility and the personalized service, right? You can't take on all these initiatives and let the other ones go to the wayside. And so that's where our innovation and operational alignment have been huge. And I think if you want to differentiate from your competitors, look at what they're doing and then see what can I do differently or what can I do better so that you stick
Mhm.
out from the bunch. And then you combine that with a little bit of marketing and differentiating your brand recognition. I loved what Todd said. Like this was too Florida for Texas. So, it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm looking at my ideal client profile. Like you said, that's a whole nother conversation. But every piece and component is in alignment. It's not so much that these departments are living in silos anymore. You have a true opportunity with AI and integrate those.
I have one final question from our Q&A, and it's a good one. How have you utilized AI to help you go to market? I know all of us love to spend time in Claude and ChatGPT, like having it solve our problems. So has it helped you guys in any way that would help the audience?
I'll say from my side, we haven't utilized it because we're in a kind of a early stage of it
Hmm.
as a true go-to-market piece externally. I think internally as a company, we're setting that kind of structure up right now, and kind of building what that looks like. But there's the positive side of AI. There's a very kind of negative side to AI too, that you're kind of one side of the coin or the other. Either you're all about it or you're kind of worried about it still. I think there's a lot of that out there. So you have to kind of be careful on within your market strategy how you're presenting that piece of technology, because the reality is, some boards are going to want that. They're tech savvy. They want to know that you're kind of moving with technology and pushing. And then there's others that if you say the word AI, they think, Terminators are showing up tomorrow and they want nothing to do with you. So, you have to know kind of your audience, when you're placing something like that, like AI, into your market strategy. But it's the reality is, if you can show how it's helping and you can humanize, and back to the relationship side of this again, but if you can kind of humanize the work that's being done, how it's freeing you up into other pieces. Maybe not talking about the things that we were missing as a management company fall through the cracks, but how are we improving processes so that our people are better for you? You just have to understand how you need to sell that idea to a board and know your audience, know which one you're trying to sell to.
Know
Yeah.
your
You know
audience.
what?
I think like know thyself. Like you have to like
Yeah,
know your
yeah,
identity and stick to it sometimes,
yeah,
regardless of
yeah.
who's on the other side of the table. And maybe you're not for everybody.
Yep.
You know what's so funny is I read that question completely different than you guys did. I
I
read
read
it
it like
as
how, yeah, same actually.
I read it as like, how am I using AI to help me form a go-to-market strategy? But actually, the way that you described it, Todd, is a very smart way to think about that question. Because like how do you put it in your go-to-market materials? Like us using AI is also a
Yeah.
way to read that question.
I
Melissa, did you
think
have anything to add?
I read it the same as you, and I'm with Todd. You have to toe that if you're talking about that side of the AI question, you have to toe that line and kind of know who you're speaking with. But to Katie's point, you have to also know who you are. And so
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
like to do is we have the human in the front and then the AI in the back in terms of our sales and marketing,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we use it as a tool rather than here's our AI, welcome, because that people do get that like weirded out feel, but it is a tool that we use. And for the other side, the way that I read it originally is I'm using AI to create efficiencies, consistency, and better alignment when it comes to our GTM efforts, rather than treating it as a replacement to our relationship building. So
Love
for
it.
me, I use it kind of as like a personal assistant and a sounding board. And people do do joke, like Katie said, my AIs are like leaps and bounds ahead of my husband's, and he jokes that they're like my best friends that I have on speed dial. And but it's really the human behind it, and it takes time. It's an investment, and I've been working with my AI systems for over 3 years now. So I was an early adopter because I saw what it could do for business development and marketing. And it never will replace the human, but I've used it to kind of create good consistency because the way that you build that brand recognition is by being consistent in your messaging. And so I think that's where a lot of management companies could go wrong is based off of using different tools. It's like, oh, which is the best AI? And the reality is you need a system of them, not just one. And you don't want a yes person. I often
So
will
true.
quiz my AI and be like, tell me what I would say in this. And then if it's wrong, I correct it.
Yeah.
Because they do update, right? There, it's still not there where it's a human. So you need the human behind it, but don't be afraid to play around with your AI tools and start exploring them so that you can create that efficiency, consistency, and alignment in your GTM strategies and implementing them across the different departments.
Right.
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
too, if you're using it just real quick in branding, be truthful in what you're putting out there. It's because there's equally a lot of deception out there. And I think that's where
True.
people are like, ah, do I trust this? Do I not trust this? I think we have to show that we are who we say we are, and what we're putting out there is the truth of who we are, what we do. I think that's a key thing that people are looking for in such a kind of big unknown right now.
Yeah, that
Be
is actually
honest.
very true. Yeah, very.
Authenticity is top tier
Thousand
right
percent.
now, and you can
Yes, it
use
is.
AI to, bring all of those, great services that you offer and your competitive advantages. But if you're not authentic in that messaging, people will clock you so fast, and that'll lose trust immediately.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That is probably a perfect part. We went over already by 10 minutes. I knew that we would in this conversation. So you guys are great. Thank you so much for joining. I have a couple of things to push. First of all, there is a good tip in the question and answer that I am going to share with everybody because why not? We are here to make everybody better. It was using Claude Cowork to answer RFPs was a game changer. So if nobody has thought of that at this point in time, there you go. Because I know every single one of you has probably gotten the 300 question RFP,
That's what you
and they
already
are a
know, like,
nightmare.
does not fit my strategy.
No,
Not doesn't align.
yeah, they are not, they are a nightmare. So there you go. If anybody needed that, use Claude Cowork. The couple of
That
things
is
that
like
I
both of them.
Yeah, that I wanted to push to the audience. If you have not signed up for Vision, highly recommend it because this conversation is going to be ongoing. I want to be really transparent. This is a topic that I am really passionate about. Our team is passionate about it. We want management companies to start thinking about this differently because association living is only growing in this industry. It's not going away. And we're going to become more competitive with each other given the consolidation that is happening and the money that is being pumped into our industry. So, if we can make management companies start thinking about this now, I think it's only going to be better for our collective future as an industry. So that's one thing I wanted to push was the fact that we're going to keep talking about this. Vision. Also wanted to let you guys know that we created a marketing kit for management companies. We don't want all of you to be exactly the same as each other, but some of you don't maybe have the resources to build out specific sales collateral. So we have made it so you can put your own logos with Vantaca information in there. And that marketing kit is also going to keep evolving as we get feedback from you. Um, I think those were the couple of things: vision, ongoing conversation, marketing kit. Outside of that, I just really appreciate you guys hanging out today. This was a really fun conversation. Todd, Melissa, Katie, thank you guys so much. And thank you to the audience for asking questions and being involved and giving us like thumbs up
I
emojis and
know.
Yeah.
hearts.
It
And
was
an
so
extra 10
fun. I was
minutes.
like,
I
wait.
know, we love the hearts. This is
There they
great.
are.
So,
There we go.
Yeah.
everybody have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
Bye.
Bye.